This week on Who Deserves to Be Inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we look at the case for putting Sinead O'Connor into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This week, we're going to take a look at the case for putting Dublin, Ireland's own Sinead O'Connor into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Sinead has been eligible for induction since 2013 and was nominated once a couple of years ago. With that said, let us look at the stats and see where they take us. To the tail of the tape we go. Sinead O'Connor released 10 studio albums, 1 live album, 5 compilation albums, and 1 EP. Of those, 4 hit the top 40 in America, with her only top 10 being 1990's I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got, which hit number 1 and went double platinum. That album was her only platinum album in America, with her 1987 debut album, The Lion and the Cobra, and personally my favorite album from her, being her only gold album in America. In the UK, 8 hit the top 40, with 2 going top 10, 1990's I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got, which hit number 1 and went double platinum, and 1992's Am I Not Your Girl, which hit number 6 and went gold. The other 2 gold albums in the UK were her debut album, the aforementioned 1987 debut, and 1994's Universal Mother. Her 1997 compilation album, So Far, The Best Of, went silver in the UK. Sinead also released 54 singles. Only one of those hit the top 40 on the American charts, but it was a huge one. It was 1990's smash hit remake of Prince's song Nothing Compares to You, which hit number 1 and also became one of the biggest selling songs of the 1990s. In the UK, 5 hit the top 40, but again, Nothing Compares to You was the only one to hit the top 10, and again, it hit number 1 and was a huge hit overseas as well. Even though Sinead only had one major hit, she did have a bunch of cult hits like Mandinga, The Emperor's New Clothes, Troy, Thank You for Hearing Me, and I Want Your Hands on Me, which she did with MC Lyte. Probably the reason why Sinead received a nomination in 2024, aside from the fact that she passed away from natural causes in 2023, has to do more with her influence rather than her career. Artists who were inspired by her attitude included PJ Harvey, Alanis Morissette, Miley Cyrus, and Tegan and Sara. In an era when no one stood for anything or only pushed buttons because it either got them attention or a payday, much like today's era of influencers and reality show stars, Sinead stood up for what she felt was right and stood against what she felt was wrong, regardless of the personal or professional cost. She spoke out about racism, especially in the music industry, sexual abuse, a woman's right to choose, the events in Northern Ireland at the time called the Troubles, and human rights. And she never backed down from anything or anyone, unless she felt that she might have aimed her weapon of choice at the wrong person, which did happen sometimes. Okay, actually more than a few times. She was also open and honest about everything in her own life, including her own fallacies. Even her signature shaved head was partially an act of rebellion, since her record label wanted her to grow her hair long to make her, in their words, more feminine, quote-unquote. Sinead didn't want the career that her record label wanted her to have. Sinead wasn't about sexualizing herself for her fans. She let her music do the talking for her because Lord knows she left it all out there in her music for everyone to see. Her songwriting was painful, sometimes joyous, but a lot of the times she said things that others either dared not say or wanted to, but couldn't. Her voice would be powerful and vulnerable, sometimes both in the same song. Check out Nothing Compares to You as an example of that. In short, Sinead O'Connor was a badass who embodied the rock and roll spirit, and in a world that could use less conformers and more rebels, especially these days, the world could use more people like Sinead. Unfortunately, her kind rarely walk the earth. Sinead deserves induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Would she have shown up to accept? Younger Sinead would have rebelled and said, not a chance. Older Sinead might have, maybe. Unfortunately, we will never know. And that is it for Who Deserves to be Inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We also invite you to check out our other podcast, the Music History Today podcast, where we go over what happened on that date in music history. That podcast drops daily, including weekends, on this channel that you're either watching or listening to this podcast on. We also have the Music History In-Depth podcast, where we go more in-depth into the events that happened for that week in music history. And that podcast posts every Tuesday on this channel that you're either watching or listening to this podcast on. Thank you very, very much for listening or watching if you're on YouTube or Spotify.